go. Hi everyone, and welcome to this rather special live stream of Strength in the Numbers with a Generation CFO Bootcamp. Really excited to catch up with some of the speakers and hear how it went today, because ultimately this is what our profession's all about, is actually sharing with each other what's working, what's coming up, what's new, and where we can drive towards a better future for all of us, where we're doing more of the right things more often. So I'd like to welcome Chris Argent, Crystal, and Andy Lonnan as well. Welcome to the show, folks.
Thank you, Andy. Great to be here, and appreciate you inviting us on to your special podcast.
Yeah, well, I thank you. So some of our audience will be familiar with, some of you may be too much familiar with you, Chris, in some cases, but would you mind maybe folks just giving just a quick 10-15 second intro into your backgrounds, and then we'll get firing with the questions. So Chris, how we come to you first?
Oh, okay. I'll go first. Well, you just told me that everybody knew I was anyway, but
well, now you've just
no,
sort of 5 seconds, which is good. Let's keep going.
Okay. Yes. Founder of Generation CFO and the host of the Generation CFO Bootcamp, which is a educational event to try and help accounting and finance professionals learn about all the latest things to learn.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Chris. Crystal, coming to you next. Quick introduction.
Yeah, so I'm one of the directors at First Intuition. We train accountants. I've been training accountants for around 18 years, and more recently I've been focusing around our digital and our leadership academies, so the whole post-education in terms of once you're qualified that space.
Awesome. Thanks a mil, Crystal. And Andy, come to you.
Hi, Andy. Hey. So I'm Andy Lonnan from Finance Training Academy and Finance Business Partner Academy, with finance professionals to help support them become world-class value-adding finance business partners through various methods, training programs, courses, our own annual conference, FBP Bootcamp, and our flagship FBP Members Club. I am an accountant myself and experienced to finance director level.
Hey, thanks a mil, folks, for those introductions. And look, again, really excited to have you all with us here. And for our audience, some of you tuning in, if you've got any questions, just please put them into the chat boxes and we'll do our best to get to them during the conversation. And if not, we will definitely follow up with you afterwards. I can definitely commit to that. We always do. So, folks, I suppose in terms of, look, awesome that you were able to give up your days and invest in creating this boot camp for today. And I know there's some sessions tomorrow as well. But in terms of today, maybe Chris, I'd love to get you to maybe recap on some of the key takeaways you got from the day, and then we'll sort of engage in a broader conversation around it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kicked off the day with a session around how the rise of the digital finance function is happening, and kind of leadership can kind of help get on board with this. And I framed it as the CFO internal startup, because I think a lot of people get quite excited about being in a startup. In fact, most people in under 35 in the accounting profession actually want to be their own boss. So framing it as a startup, I think, might be quite motivating to them, and it might help to retain them as well before they leave to set up their fintech businesses or account tech businesses. But that was obviously that was my session. But I just loved the feedback that I got from it, and one particular comment was saying it was explosive. And I, you know, I'm not particularly sort of ego driven, but it's lovely when someone says something like that, because you kind of know resonating. And a lot of the conversations that I've been having, basic for many, many years, have fell on fairly deaf ears in accounting and finance. So now I feel things are changing. So that was a particular highlight for me. The couple of the other sessions, Rakesh Sanjani was talking about automation, but he really broke it down and was saying, look, you've read the headlines about RPA, you've got very excited about, what it can do, and, AI and all the rest of it. But actually, a lot of the benefit is in, you know, these micro organizations almost, and, you know, how going small and scaling is kind of the right approach. Then there was a few people sort of comments. There was a really good session on psychological security, actually, and psychological safety, and how it's relevant in a kind of changing environment. And I think it resonated both because there's change to happen in finance and accounting, but also because we've been through a pandemic and people have had to change and flex, and, you know, their relationship with their bosses and their teams have changed over that period. But the buzzword, and I think for Andy and Crystal as well, seems to be superpowers. It's like everyone focusing on their superpowers. And in that session, it was, the superpower was kind of awareness and reflection, and trying to make sure that, you know, you were building trust in your team so that people felt challenge you. And Woody Rayner, who's a finance transformation lead at the post office at the moment, I work with him at John Lewis, you know, he said he'd love someone to come to him and say, boss, you're not going to like this, but, and he'd rather have that kind of conversation than who would just sit there and say nothing and leave or something like that. So yeah, some really interesting conversations, very broad conversations, and I had a good one with Andy and Crystal, but maybe they can talk about that one.
I was thinking that's a great segue, because like when you talk about things like psychological safety, or hyper automation, the internal startup and digital finance, these are things we've not even covered, I think, in our training, let alone in our early careers. Must be very daunting for people in our profession now. And then out to talk of superpowers. So maybe Crystal, if we come to you, and Andy, maybe Crystal comes to you first. These superpowers, what are they about?
It was really great to join conversation around looking at the skills that are needed for a finance professional in today's modern world. And we did talk around that need for superpower. I'll let Andy talk a little bit more about it in a moment. But I think what I took from the session was that there is a real need for development in some really fundamental, important skills. They are needed, and there is an interrelationship between technical training, technical skills, business skills, and also digital skills. And the importance of focusing on those, I think, sort of what came out of the polls really gave us insight to just how important those digital and business skills are to transport you from that starting point of being a qualified accountant. But Andy, I'll let you talk
Andy, what do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to say in terms of some fantastic things Crystal was talking about, just that these skills are starting to be part of the qualification now, which is really exciting, and apprenticeships, which was I didn't really know. So it's great to hear that it's now starting from grassroots level. Obviously, we up at a higher level where people are like, oh my gosh, how do I cope with this changing world? How do we get digital? How do we get business partnering skills and so on? But referring to the superpower, we were talking about that quite a lot, and talking about knowing your unique brilliance, your unique strengths, and work with those. Not everyone is born to be a business partner or a data analyst or things like that. So know what you love, know what you're good at, and work with that. You've got a more fulfilling career doing it, and you're bound to add more value if it's something that you're naturally gifted at. But you can develop, this is something else we talked about, you can develop the skill sets that are needed as well, and no one should be daunted by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just reminded me, actually, like sometimes it's just a trust in your strengths when there's all of this chaos going on around. It's like sometimes, well, you know what, maybe sometimes it's just to maybe take a look at ourselves and say, okay, what are my strengths? Who am I? And what's going to excite me the most about this journey? Because there's so many options now. I mean, like, you look at all these different areas associated with finance. Chris, I'm amazed you were able to fit all of this stuff into one day of a boot camp. Let alone, I know you probably got more tomorrow, but how did you fit it all into one day? I mean, yeah, well, serious nuts.
Yeah, there's a second day. Now, how do I fit it all in? So basically, you know, I talk to other people and they tell me, you know, what they want, and always ask sort of questions like, where do I start? And after a while, you get a sense of what people actually want to hear from you. And it was a bit, the boot camp, to be honest with you, at first, I was a bit worried that it was going to feel like it was, talking to old ways of working and finance transformation sort of from 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And, everyone just wants to automate with technology. But actually there's a whole different conversation happening now, which isn't linked to sort of Ps and those big systems. It's almost like this ecosystem of apps that are out there now, whether it's a Microsoft environment or whether it's, your expenses platform. There's all this other stuff out there, which, frankly, people can, understand and implement super quickly as a solution. There's rigor and they're very well tried and tested. And it's kind of that sort of stuff that people want to know about. And sometimes, as an organizer, you don't want things to be too much on the tools and the sort of sales pitch or a demo. You want people to understand the problems that you're trying to solve with this stuff. But we all from people that they do want to know, what's the best tool, and
completely. Yeah.
How AI actually, the right tool for me versus Tableau or something, or be coding or doing something else. And it's getting into that sort of detail, and that's what the bootcamp is trying to do, where we have obviously the Thought Leadership Summit, which is GenCFO Live. But we just pack it all in by, creating a very long list, talking to great people, seeing who wants to get on board. We are a community at the heart.
Yeah.
So, I met Andy somewhere on that journey. Same with Crystal and the First Intuition guys. And you kind of know when you meet good people, and when you meet sort of a modern accountant or someone who's thinking maybe a little bit different about these things.
Because we do exist, these modern accountants. We've plenty of them listening to this podcast. In fact, actually, I'm really impressed people are actually tuning in and staying with us, because I've got these YouTube analytics firing up on the live stream. So that's great. So it's not bad for a first attempt. People are actually continuing to watch this. So thanks, folks.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I really appreciate it. But actually, and the serious points, we've already said, like, you're starting with the strengths, knowing what our strengths are as we navigate through this. I also like what you said there, Christopher, about problem solving, is knowing what problems we're trying to solve. And then the idea of community. There are communities out there like Generation CFO, SITN, Strength in the Numbers, the work Andy and Crystal are driving. It's very much community led. And we've got these modern accountants. So I suppose, Crystal, if I come to you next, how do we reflect on all of that? Is there a process or something we can follow to reflect and imagine this forward and get the most out of what's there available now?
I think so. With my very much a kind of training and hat on, I think there's been some fantastic sessions, some really good learning and discussion that's taking place today at the numerous sessions, and that there would have been lots of seeds planted. But where do you take it from now?
Yes.
How do you still remember it tomorrow, next week? How do you do something with it? I think I love the flexibility of our online conferences and online sessions and boot camp. But I kind of think back to when I used to go to face-to-face conferences. I would get on a train on the way home, often with a few of my colleagues, and we would unpack the day. We would talk about it. Like, that was great, or how would we use that? And we'd almost kind of like divvy up what happens in a day as to who was going to take it a little bit further, who was going to do a bit of research, and the things that someone might take away and actually take actions from. Or if I was on my own, I'd sit on my headphones in and probably think through everything that had happened across the day, what I'd heard, it fitted with my role, with my organisation, and where I might look to do a bit of research on my phone out and looking at things in a bit more detail that had sparked my interest. How do we make sure that we still do that if we're not taking that time out? I think that's really important.
Exactly.
And I think we need to be more purposeful. So purposely thinking about finding space, being bolder with making the time to absorb, think back on, reflect on what you've taken in today. So I would say I do a few things. Firstly, make some time for thinking this evening. Have an hour out. Process what you've listened to today. Process what you've thought about. Make some time for discussion. Did you meet someone on one of the sessions? Is there someone in your community? Is there someone in your workspace that you can talk to? And thirdly, set yourself some actions, even if that's just one thing that you're going to do within the next 5 days that's going to take an idea forward, a seed that you heard, some discussion that you listened to, that you're going to take away and make further action from it. So yeah, I reflect back.
I'm starting to feel I was in the mindfulness session then. but to relax, like, can I have that glass of wine?
Yeah. but like, it's like, yeah, but I suppose, like, it's that recency though, Chris. It's like, look, that's what I think we feel after such a long day. Is like, yeah, I just need to switch on to something else. But actually, I think Crystal's got some good points. It's like, that's maybe our natural inclination. But if we can even take a few minutes just to go through those steps, I was just thinking like that, it might make it easier in the following, because I'm thinking, Andy, coming to you next and saying like, well, look, right, that's on the way home, or that's the evening ahead, particularly in this virtual environment. What about when we start up our laptops in the morning or go on the phones for the emails or whatever? How do we make sure we're taking this information forward into the future days from tomorrow and using it and applying it without getting distracted and sucked into 3,000 emails that have been in our inbox because we missed one day at work?
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's so true. I think the important thing is, as Crystal was saying, is to do something now, this evening, at least first thing tomorrow morning. Stay in the zone of that inspiration and all those ideas that are whizzing around you right now, and capture them somehow. Whether you're someone who writes, just get your phone and do an audio message to yourself, or video it, do whatever works for you. So you're capturing the key things from your day. Because of course we're not traveling home on a train right now. It reminded me, Crystal, just then when I was on a program, and it was in Paris every time. Can you imagine, in Paris to do a program? And I go to a patisserie the next morning after doing this intense program, and I'd sit right. That's my way of doing things. Just anything that came into my head. I wouldn't review my notes at that point. It was what was spinning around my head, because what's spinning around your head is probably the thing you want to implement. You'll have some quick wins. Do them. Just start. When you get back to the office, you are going to have 3,000 emails. You are going to have deadlines coming out your ears. Just start and do what Andy is doing right now. Take imperfect action. Just do it. Give it a go. Yeah, exactly. And blame the conference for doing something new. You know, you've taken some time out. Your company's given you time out. Your company might have paid this, or you might have paid for this. So make it count. You know, just blame the conference. Do you want to go to a conference and do nothing with the information afterwards, or do you want to do something, even if it's not perfect? I think it's probably some of the best advice I ever had as an accountant. Take imperfect action, because we can be so perfectionist in nature. So just start somewhere and get going, take imperfect action, see where it takes you.
It's funny that I love that expression, take imperfect action, because I think we just put too much pressure on trying it to be right and perfect all the time. I mean, I'm actually trying to struggle here, trying to actually get the Q&A up and running here. And it's just like, okay, well, you know what? It's not perfect, but we will get back to any questions folks have, you know, and we will, but it just may not be live because I've not been able to figure out the technology, you know. Or maybe a modern accountant, but not like, completely modern. But getting there. I mean, live stream is new for us.
You are a broadcaster. You are the accounting broadcaster.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, we're a great team around us. As you know, it takes a team to make the dream work. But I suppose, Chris,
can I add one thing to Andy? Just what Andy said, and it's a bit of a plug for what Andy does actually. So, as well as sort of creating that list for yourself or those actions yourself tonight, I also think, trying to find like-minded people and having that sort of peer network is super important. There's a reason why we all like to work with each other. We're like-minded, and I think if there are people, within the boot camp that Andy's running, or the academy where that they're all great finance business partners together, go and be those people, and go and be your, that's harnessing your right? That's acknowledging that's what you want to do and you want to do it well, and I'm going to hang out with all those people. And the great thing about that is that the chances are they're really positive about, that learning. They're really positive about trying to be a good business partner, and it really helps, you stay in the game and stay motivated, because it's all well and good writing that list, but as you say, come tomorrow, you can't rely on just motivation. You've got to rely on people around you to get you through it, because your motivation will wane as soon as month end comes in again.
That's a great short to medium term, even long term actually strategy, because I think those relationships and networks grow with each other as each people in that network or community grows. Everyone grows, and the value of it grows. But I also liked your point is right. Maybe that glass of wine or that really nice pastry in the patisserie or coffee or whatever. It's like maybe set up some small rewards as well. You just reminded me there, Andy, about partially. I remember the time when you're doing that, and then also, like when I used to go on these trips, and you'd cover so much, like business trips, and you'd meet so many people, and like there was so much, like so many problems to be solved. It was like, how do you decompress on that? Well, look, the easy thing would have just been just to put it off till you got back to the office the following after the weekend. But it's like, actually, hang on a sec. I'll reward myself with my reward actually was an iced coffee. I know that's really rock and roll, but I had to drive when I got off the plane, so I couldn't really and I wanted to sleep as well to some degree, and coffee actually relaxes me, so it has the adverse effect. It tends to put me to sleep a bit. So
you have a biscuit on the side that that might have tipped you over.
That's the secret sauce. Yeah, that would have been it. Gone. So, but no, it's nice to have these little rewards as well to say, look, yeah, I did take the time to be mindful, decompress, reflect, because that's that little bit of extra energy allow you to hit the ground the next time going forward. And I love that point about peer networks and so on. We all drive each other on. Excellent points, and again, we've not frightened people away, so that's great. Folks. Thanks for still watching in and tuning on this live stream. It's you guys blow me away. I'm in awe. So thank you. But I put it more down to like the great speakers we have here, as opposed to my broadcasting of it. So with that in mind, I want to get the most out of you in terms of wrapping this up and looking for some maybe parting thoughts. Crystal, like if folks were to take away, 1-2 key things from this whole boot camp, and make purposeful action, imperfect action going forward, what's the next thing they need to be doing or being mindful of in the days and weeks ahead?
I just like to say, I'm getting a poster of that. Take imperfect action. I'm going to clock up this one, so I use that as a phrase over the next week. I'll reference you around. I think so. What take away from it? What should you do? I think taking away from it is understanding the importance of the interrelationship between these 3 areas of skills: our kind of business, leadership, interpersonal skills, digital skills, and technical skills. And thinking about kind of where am I in my career at the moment? Where is it that I'm going to elevate to? Where is it I'm progressing to? Where's my goal over the next 5 years? And what development do I need in order to achieve that? So thinking about your role and your own personal goals. In a short term, absolutely go and reflect. Think back, have some conversations with people, tell them what you've learned, and set yourself some actions and yourself accountable to taking some of those things away from today and putting them into practice.
Love it. Thank you, Crystal. They're great. I actually love making notes about these things. And again, we will actually produce some show notes with this as well, transcribed. So folks, if you do want to sort of get the details on this and you're trying to keep up with the note taking, you can always check this out on our website. We will have the show notes there. There's some such great advice. I'm struggling to keep up with it all. Trying to do my best to keep notes. But thanks a million, Crystal, for that. And Andy, coming to you. I definitely think folks should head to that patisserie in Paris you mentioned. We should definitely. I need to get the details of location off you. Sounds like a great thing to do. But outside of that, what else should people do going forward now?
Oh gosh, I'm just so hungry for a pastry now.
Yeah.
So I think 2 things. Focus on your superpower. And secondly, I'm going to use a quote to help with, because I think this helps with everything, because to do something different takes courage. It does take courage, even to do a small step differently, to connect with someone in your organization, or to do a data analytics or something like that is outside your comfort zone. And there's a lovely quote from a chap called Neil Donald Walsh. He says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And I love that. So the message is do something different, and the ping that you will get at is just so exciting, and it motivates you to do more and more and more, to implement more and more from what you've learned from today.
Awesome, Andy. Thank you for that, and a new quote now for the collection as well. We'll have to dig that one out. So thanks a mil for that, Andy. Chris, look, thanks for putting on the boot camp today. And I suppose the first recommendation is make day 2. But I was starting to go into day 2. I'm actually, maybe that'd be a good segue to you maybe to talk about day 2 for a little bit as well. But what should folks do next?
So day 2, we are kicking off with, and we do have a mindfulness session in there. So
that's handy.
We wanted to make it a little bit different. But there's more learning across the whole digital finance function, what I tend to call the digital finance function. We've got a fantastic session with an accounting institution's data scientist. Sounds like an oxymoron, right? But it's not. We are actually GenCFO, are working with the ACCA and the CAANZ to create a digital transformation paper. I'm very excited about this research, and we're talking a little bit about that tomorrow with the data scientist who's on that paper. And we have sort of more learning across the piece of all of these kind of areas that come under what I call the digital finance function. But my parting message goes back actually to my message this morning. And as much as I'm an advocate of technology, as much as I know that technology can change what we do in a very positive way, this is not a technology shift, so don't start there. And try not to start there. It's very easy to download tools, like I said, and start playing stuff. This transformation that we're talking about as a profession, adding value to our businesses, whatever that means and however we measure that, is a talent and skills shift. And it's people that make a party, right? Like-minded people that are going to make a good party. So focus on the talent and the skills and the training and gaps that we need to close. And if the technology is there as a solution, then great. But don't start with the technology.
Well, yeah. Look, what fantastic parting thoughts to have. So, folks, look. Again, really appreciate you making the time after really long days. The audience as well for tuning in. I know it's global, so I'm not going to say what parts of the days, but between Crystal, Andy, and Crystal, Andy, and Chris, you guys, awesome stuff. Continuing to give even into the evenings as well. So hope you have a well-deserved glass of wine, whatever it is, pastry if you can get one, Andy. You know what it is, though.
And we will always remember to keep our strength in the numbers.
Yeah, that's great. Well, on that, let's wrap on that one. So everyone, thanks for taking the time, investing the time with us today, and until next time, take care of yourselves and let's keep on building our strength in the numbers.
Thank you.
Take care, folks. And that's the end of the stream. That's the end of the stream.